Hi. I'm Cathy. I'm an alcoholic. Can everybody hear me back there? Yep, great. I do have experience with these steps, and I am qualified to speak at this meeting as a person who has done this work with a Big Book Step Study sponsor and a loving God, and I am making living amends and still have a couple of amends that I'm willing to make that recipients aren't willing yet. And I do continue to work the steps and sponsor. So I'm really super appreciative to be here, and it's always a pleasure to be asked. This has been my home group for many years, and I really appreciate all the people who do service at this meeting, as well as the new people who are coming, because without you, we wouldn't have a meeting or anything to pass along. So let me share with you my experience with Step 11. What was I like? I came to Big Book Step Study in, I was 4 years abstinent from drinking, and I was in a different program, and somebody had said that you got to go listen to this guy, because I was 4 years abstinent, 4 years in recovery, but I hadn't worked the steps yet. And I was trying to learn how to do the steps from going to a step meeting, where you read about the step and then share about what was read. And I could regurgitate whatever somebody else said pretty good by that point. But I didn't understand how to actually do the steps. So a gentleman came into an open meeting and was sharing his experience with the first step, actually, and was talking about the doctor's opinion and the phenomenon of craving, and that caught my ear. And I thought, what is he? I won't tell you exactly what I was thinking, but I was definitely, thinking, I know I've read that book too, and I don't know where you got that, but clearly, yeah. So anyways, at that point, I was like, oh my goodness, let's go to one of these kind of meetings. So I went to a meeting in Leominster, and it was a AA meeting, and it was a pretty large meeting, and I was really relieved to not be able to speak at this meeting. And at that time, which to me is hilarious, I really hadn't identified completely as an alcoholic. I knew I had other addictions, and I knew I had other issues, but I hadn't conceded completely that the alcohol was, I could. It's I looked at all the exclusions, I had never been in a detox. I hadn't been, anyways, people that had things that I didn't have, but the things I did have, I'd easily disregard. And so one of the benefits, jumping ahead a little bit, of beginning to do this work is it became really clear to me the nature of my problem as I sat and listened at these meetings to the steps and the people who were working the steps. And what was really attractive to me was hearing about the solution, because I really did not care about your problem. I was like, how do you feel better? You know what I mean? Or, whatever's going on inside that, you really couldn't put your finger on or talk to anybody about. You just, again, kind of floating along, doing what other people do, trying to find your way. And at the time, my sponsor had said, we'll wait for an AWOL comes up. You can do the steps in an AWOL. And that wasn't good or bad. I had done that, and it was helpful. I had done the steps and other methods, and that was helpful too. But it was not the same as this particular method, which I was about to learn. So lucky for me, there was a person at the meeting. And another thing I like about these meetings is there's a call for sponsors. And at the end of this meeting, there'll be a call if there's anybody available to sponsor, and people raise their hands. And I think that's really helpful when you're new or not and looking for a sponsor. So I just happened to know somebody else from my other program, and that made it easy for me to ask her. And thankfully, she said yes, which, gosh, I really appreciate, because I've asked people who have said no, too, and maybe you've had that experience, and it's, it doesn't really feel very good when that happens. But at the same token, you just ask somebody else, because you need to get one, and that, they say the right sponsor is the one who's available. Well, right, I'll second that. So anyhow, so this lady agreed to sponsor me and basically said, gave me some parameters of this work, and do the reading, blah, 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 and when you get to the third step, basically, that's where I was supposed to call her up and read the whole thing to her, and she was going to give me the instructions for the writing, which was all I wanted. That's all I wanted, was give me those instructions. Because at that time, I, again, didn't really understand how this works. It's not a me program, it's a we program. You cannot work this program alone. At least that's what my experience has been. So as I got the instructions, listened to the readings, did the writing, all of that, had a sponsor change, got another sponsor, did some more writing, read the fifth step, went through the 6 and 7, got to the piece where you're writing out, your amends and working on doing them. And then by the time you've done a couple, which was what I was told, a couple, then raise your hand, and anybody who asks you, you say yes. And if anybody asks you to do service, yes is the answer. And I really appreciate my sponsors, because they have also shared with me their own, kind of like ancillary helpful hints around how they work their recovery program. And some have actually become friends, but purely how a person applies and works these steps is what I was looking for and what I got. And so as I was listening and going through more about alcoholism and the simple 2 questions to ask yourself, are you an alcoholic? Yeah, oh my God, when I asked myself those 2 questions, but if you gave me the 40 questions, and even though I think I might have got like 30 something, it was like, oh, well, I didn't get them all, so, that's not me, or I don't know. It was just very easy to be exclusive and not own the malady, but until I could really concede that, yes, I am an alcoholic. And to be frank with you, it fully landed when I heard my 5th step, because I heard the mental part of it, and there was no longer, there was just, again, heaps of evidence. And one thing that my sponsor did say to me was that normal drinkers don't have blackouts. I found that to be news to me. I thought everybody had blackouts because I was having them for decades as far as that went, but then I just get up and go to work and do it all over again. So as I was in the midst of this, writing was the first introduction to me, besides giving the instructions to pray every time before I wrote. That became a routine. So instruction, okay, pray every time you write, say the 3rd step prayer. If you get interrupted, pray again. And I was also told to read pages 84 to 88 every day. I didn't know why I was reading them, but I honestly pretty much did what I was told. And I was afraid there was going to be a quiz or something somewhere along the way, or I'd have to be rattled off something, and I don't know. There wasn't, but so that began to introduce some of these concepts, which, as we know, are really steps 10 and 11, kind of interwoven. But what I'm going to try to just talk about right now is step 11. And so let's just read what step 11 is. Where is my step 11? I know it's on the sign right here in front of me, and I had put my paper here. Here we go. Sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood Him, praying only for knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry that out. Well, that's a big, big step. So it's telling me seek through prayer and meditation, and I need to improve the conscious contact, where one of the parts that you would be given as directions is to look up words, which I was sure I knew all the words, but guess what? I still don't. So, again, that kind of cocky, that is just really not helpful, but that was something that I ran into a lot. So I have to be awake, and I'm seeking to understand Him. And they're referring to God because the members were so inspired, but we're also told through this work you can choose your own conception of God, and my conception of God doesn't need to be yours, and that's a relief. As long as you know that you're not God, or there is definitely a power greater than you, then you're going to be okay. You'll get there little by slow. So I'm going to pray for knowledge of His will and the power to carry that out, because I learned through this work lack of power is my dilemma. So this reading is talking about making sure that I'm clearing out my channel on a daily basis, which is more of step 10, and we've got directives around that, and then to constantly be seeking to improve that conscious contact. In order to improve my conscious contact, I have to be conscious. That is the problem right there. Awake, seeking, authentic, not up in my head, not thinking I'm a different than anybody else, or thinking ill thoughts, or worrying about what I'm saying and whether you care or not, or how great somebody sounds. That's not really, when I'm aligned with my source, I've got an element of trust, and this reading talks about that we develop this sense, this intuition that we come to rely on, but we've got to be really careful about that because you can get yourself into situations where if you're not consulting with others and working with others, that you can start to believe your own stuff and get a little off to the middle and share that with other people that are in your perimeter. And that's not what we want to do. What is just absolutely stunning about this reading, and I was just tickled when it ended up to be this actual step, is because I have to share with you, and I don't know if you're really going to get this, but I have been reading this for since 1989. Okay, I've been coming to a lot of meetings, and I have been reading this for a very long time with a lot of people. And guess what? I wasn't reading it right. And I just realized it like a couple of months ago. Hello, let me tell you what I did and what I noticed while I was working this step one particular morning. And it's saying, on awakening, let's think about the 24 hours ahead. I do that. We consider our plans for the day. I do that too. Before we begin, I wasn't doing that before I began. Now what are they talking about? Before we begin doing all that, ask God to direct our thinking especially asking that it be divorced from self-pity, dishonest, or self-seeking motives. Under these conditions, we can employ our mental faculties with assurance, for after all, God gave us brains to use. And it goes on to say how we'll be on a higher thought plane. So what I'm saying is, I was doing a part of these instructions without doing the major point of to bring God in before you start thinking about this, and like that makes a tremendous difference on the quality of my thought life and who's driving the wheel. But it really is just another way for me to share and also to show you and show others why we have to continue. If you don't keep going, if you don't continue, if you don't work with other people, if you don't sponsor other people, if you don't work the ladder steps every day or like as close to as what you can do, you're gonna just stop somewhere that you didn't continue. And it tells us this in little ways, or gives us warnings about resting on our laurels. But I think that sometimes maybe, or in my own mind, I'm thinking it's like something more big or horrible. It's like, you're gonna take the big hit, or you're gonna, whatever you do, gonna take a dirt nap. I don't know. There's been people that I've done this work with that are dead. Doing this work isn't an insurance policy. I used to think it was, and I still hear people say that. It's not. If you don't keep going, you're not going to continue to have that connection with your source, because that is what I have to keep doing and what these instructions are telling us. It's like, okay, so here's another day, here's an opportunity to be useful to God, and let me just get that straight before I start cooking up any plans or looking at my phone, or I'm going to just throw the hot water in the microwave to make a cup of tea. That's not. And I'm just amazed by what a simple thing, by just deviating a little tiny bit, can make a difference. On the other hand, as I was starting out with my initial sponsor, and who cares how many sponsors you've had, really, with my initial sponsor was basically more will be revealed, and yeah, boy, is that true. Continues to be revealed if I'm open to it. And so that's the other part. Honestly, I could talk all day about, but I won't. I'll spare you. Seeking and conscious contact and ways to stir up my spirit, and what are the things that I am doing or trying and working with. And for me, I'm at a place in my life where my professional life and my personal life is very much in sync, as far as I need to be fully on the beam with this work to do my other work, and it really all fits together, and I know that that's God's plan for me, and that's my purpose. But I also know there's more for me, and it talks a little bit about this in the sense of if you have a husband or wife, maybe they'll pray with you or something like that. Boy, does that sound great. That's something that in my life, as I find a partner, gosh, I'd love that, to have a partner that you share your spiritual life with, or that you can, I'm not saying you have to be a 12-stepper, but to be able to share that with your partner, as well as the other aspects of our lives that are intimate and brings so much joy, and having that, I think, would just be great. So when I see people that I know that they do have, I've got a couple of friends that, they both are in this particular lane, if you will. They have just as many troubles, but they have a way of living, that is very attractive to me. So having said all that, sources and seeking, I just believe in being open. It tells you try to see where religious people are right. That can be a long road for some people. I just try to keep it simple, as far as, being kind, trying to do the next right thing, just like the pendulum. I can go really hard, or I can be like right in the middle. I've gotten a lot of resources out of like going on retreats to the Wilson House or Marie Joseph's or Ender's Island or different groups that I have connected with. I'm also connecting with other 12-step programs that have things to offer around emotional recovery, and that's really the frontier that I'm just so full of joy to be getting some traction with, getting down to like what's really, operating underneath all this. And that's just solely God. God will reveal to you the next right thing to do if you're so inclined and awake. Because that's the thing. Isn't it so easy to just not be awake and just kind of trudge and go sit in your seat and okay, great. You know what? That's when I sell myself short, honestly, because our training is we only have 24 hours, right? So we're supposed to live like this is all you got. This is, be awake. What's the next right thing? And that's where I really have to hear from other people, what they're doing, how they've noticed different things and that they've observed that I'm still not. Because believe you me, next year is going to be something else that I can't believe I just missed it, you know what I mean? But we continue. So thank you for your patient and loving attention. I really appreciate it, and I look forward to hearing from you.